Hello, good morning to all our fibromyalgia friends across the internet. Welcome. Well, it's good morning, good afternoon to some of you as well. Welcoming everyone to our Fibromyalgia Advocacy live all over. I know we're streaming on Support Fibro, will be shared everywhere, Fibro Life. Being Fibro Mom, welcome Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia and the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles. If you're tuning in live, please leave a comment, leave emoji, let us know where you are tuning in from. We'll love to hear from you as we share more of our advocacy efforts moving forward. I am Melissa Talwar. I am the Executive Director of the Support Fibromyalgia Network. I am also a board-certified functional medicine health coach, joined by our lovely advocacy team here. Brandi, we'll go with Brandi first, and then Kristal for an introduction.
Hi, I'm Brandi Privatera, co-founder of Support Fibromyalgia Network. I'm also the program director for families and fibromyalgia. I created the blog Being Fibro Mom to help parents living with fibromyalgia better manage their symptoms while raising a family. And that's me.
Kristal, let's have you introduce yourself too.
Hi, I'm Kristal. I'm the founder of the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles and Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia. I'm a professional dog lover, as you can see. And one of my favorite things is Friday and furry friends and engaging in advocacy.
Well, and who do we have here? We have a guest. You can't leave us hanging without showing the guest. I know we have stuff coming up a little later, but it looks like someone is making an appearance.
Yep, this is Cody, the infamous Cody. He stole my phone earlier today and went on Facebook and shared one of his old awareness videos, and I saw that after the fact. So no more Scooby snacks for today.
Look at that face. He's loving the camera.
Mischief. That's what I see on his face.
Oh, but look, the limelight eating it up, like the poses. Oh yeah, like loving it. So everybody out there, like bring your furry friend to this too. It's all welcome. As we dive into fibromyalgia advocacy updates, we do have updates. We've had a tremendous month doing a lot of awareness and advocacy together, collaboration across the board. It's been terrific. And I mean, we're almost done with May, but I think I want to remind everybody in all of this, and especially with everybody that shares in Team Fibro, Nerd Nation, that we don't stop. Like, yeah, May may come to an end and it might settle down sort of, but we still are going to be pretty loud through the rest of the year, right? Everybody's here like,
Oh yeah, because I mean, we still got DC, the summer coming up, and more stuff to just organize, because even though we're done with this year, we got next year to do. So we kind of take a small break, and I put quotations because it's really not a break, but we kind of slow down a little bit. And then in a few months, we go right back up to doing it, because awareness and advocacy has to happen 12 months a year.
Absolutely. And shout out to everybody that joined us during Advocacy Week. You continue to take energy, you share your stories. It's so valuable to meet with our congressional leaders. I know Quinette out there, shout out to Quinette from Freddie J's Fibro Fighters and Pretty in Pain podcast for jumping in as a new team lead. There's so many great stories and stuff happening, and a lot of good synergy this year. And I know, Kristal, you brought in some additional veteran voices for fibromyalgia to the mix, not only with proclamations, but with advocacy. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about what was going on so people can get updated if they haven't already?
Which part? The proclamations or the legislative advocacy?
Both. I mean, this is a good time to celebrate the work that you did as a team, right? Bringing in new people into the mix.
So yeah, this year I assisted several of our Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia team members with applying for proclamations for Fibromyalgia Awareness Day for May 12th. And we actually, not only did we get quite a few, but we also had a Patriot supporter, Maisha King, who lives in Baltimore County of, was that Massachusetts or Maryland? One of the two, I can't remember. But she also on our behalf submitted a request and advocated for a proclamation for May 12th from her county executive as well. And the thing that is important to highlight there is that before we were just kind of like this small group of voices that seem to be echoing down the corridor, but now we're seeing people who might, not necessarily be a veteran or live with fibromyalgia or even have a family member or caregiving for a person with fibromyalgia, but they're supporting our efforts to engage in both state and federal advocacy along with promote awareness. So that is a huge step that has happened this year. This is like the first time we're really seeing other communities coming in and doing things on our behalf. And then this year, I'm very proud of all the VBFF team members. We had a lot of new faces, more people engaged. And some of that comes down to them watching our progress over the years and realizing like we're not just talking the talk, we are walking the walk and we're being consistent. And that is very, that clicks well with veterans. So they sit back as a community, and I'm sure Brandi can also contest to this as well. We sit back as a community and we observe because we don't want to invest our energy pennies if people are just talking about it or they kind of do something once and then they let it fall to the wayside. So I think there's just a lot of factors that have contributed to really monumental successes across the board and across the nation and even internationally this year.
Well, I think a lot of it is because advocacy is a quick burnout. People that do advocacy and run support groups, there's a lot that goes into it that I don't think people understand. It's like it's kind of like how we are on Facebook, right? Like people put their best face forward on Facebook, but they don't see everything that's going on behind the scenes of things, like with concerts and stuff. And it's the same thing with advocacy. You see, some of the results that come out of it and you see the pictures from advocacy, but what you don't see is all the work that goes behind it, especially when you have a really small team of being able to do it on your own. Burnout happens very quickly and it's very discouraging. I know that I think it was last year, Melissa, that I was like, hey, like, should we just like pause for a few months on advocacy so we can, figure some things out? And Melissa was like, no, we have to keep going so we don't lose that momentum. And so it's like, yeah, people can get burnout very quickly because you have to keep going. You have to keep doing it. I can speak for myself. I'm not the greatest at self-care, like so many of us are. And so burnout happens. And so this is why it's important for us to come together and do this together.
The other thing I was going to say is recognizing everybody at our community table and the skill sets that they bring and figuring out who can support in what areas with advocacy. That way we're not taking on every task, under just a few people, and then looking at who can do what's within their skill set, what's within their network, so that we're not burning ourselves out, but also creating an equal contribution field for everyone feel and contribute to the overall advocacy efforts and the success of it.
Well, and we always talk about relentless execution over here at Support Fibro. So I know it sounds a lot when you're living with fibromyalgia. That's why we definitely have people rallying. We team up. And I just wanted to say hello to Jan. Jan just being like, Team Ohio here. Like, this is why we really are going to be talking more about collaboration. You're going to hear this over and over again from all of us here. The team aspect, and I know with Kristal talking about Team Fibro, teaming up statewide, supporting each other, working together, mentoring each other, learning the process, because then we're actually putting more time in collectively. And so people can learn, they can see what they like, they can see how they can support the process, because sometimes your body just doesn't want to cooperate, and we understand that. So how can we team up to better be more effective? Now there's the component we're doing is we're talking about public awareness. So moving forward, getting more proclamations, working all together in teams by states, going after governors, mayors, cities, all of that together, because you're creating this public awareness about fibromyalgia, declaring with proclamations, state resolutions, all of that. I know it's actively going to be happening, and teaming up together so that maybe there's some team leads involved with that in the future. but you get sent letters. And I did see, because you posted with Al in Texas, that I'm seeing some other people that actually wrote to the governor, and the governor sent them the actual proclamation, and they got it in the mail. They got a physical copy. So this is what we're doing, is like this domino effect moving forward of people actually seeing and like, whoa, my governor like actually did this for fibromyalgia. There's other people in my state with fibromyalgia. And this is what we're learning in the advocacy meetings too. We partner up by state. People are listening to other people's stories. They're like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of what my journey was like. So we're really moving forward in this public awareness and advocacy space at the same time.
Right. And while it's a state level advocacy and awareness effort, every time you advocate and successfully obtain a proclamation, it's literally giving you legitimacy on a particular government level. And I will tell you that, I mean, there was a lot of feedback and rallying and really happiness and pride for, you know, all the states and cities and counties that proclamations were, you know, received. And this year with Texas and Colorado and North Carolina, we saw just so many people in those states buzzing about it. And I know with Texas, well, I went back and I could not find any proclamations that were issued in the past. So it looks like this is the first time Texas has ever done that. And that's a huge win for Texas living, you know, Texans living with fibromyalgia. And that also, that momentum and that recognition, it strengthens our federal level advocacy efforts as well. And so with that, for you.
And shout out to Evan, because I know we shared his picture. And just standing there proud, like it was so cool. And I know the Men with Fibromyalgia page shared it, and you could see like the men with fibromyalgia, we know you're out there. We get you. So it was good for them to see representation too, right, in advocacy.
The other thing is the gentlemen this year beat the women with the proclamations. So we got 7 out of 9. Or 6 out of 9, and only 2 women, myself and Anu, were able to get proclamations. All the rest are men. And then we have Maisha, who, you know, did us a solid for Baltimore County. So like when you're looking at the grand scheme of things of 8 proclamations and the majority are men, that's a huge form of validation and amplifying their voices as well. And again, it brings legitimacy, but this also ties into our advocacy efforts on the federal level and some of that legislative advocacy that happened on May 10th and May 11th. So Melissa, I know we all were team leads and kind of jumped around and we're in different states per se, but what were some of the wins for our legislative advocacy days and some of the things and comments and relationships that we built?
Well, I know top of mind also, something we learned about is we have more allies at Capitol Hill than we even noticed. So we did get some notification from Congressman Matt Cartwright, by the way. So if you are in, and I pulled it up here so I remember, Pennsylvania's 8th congressional district, he is definitely a supporter. He shared on social media. We have some allies there. Going to try to make some meetings in person in DC, but definitely if you're in that district, please send a note, an email thanking him for supporting fibromyalgia, supporting fibromyalgia awareness. I have to figure out how to share and what to share coming up. And then Kristal and Brandi, I know Brandi was in the meeting with us too, with Durbin's office. So we can officially say stuff?
But we were told that, you know, right now the appropriations request that we made to increase the NIH funding for research to $50 million was going to be put as a line item. So that's huge. Melissa and Kristal, one of you can break down what that means, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. But we were told that if this is confirmed for the beginning of next year, then we can get support from other Congress members to be able to be in support of that and saying, yes, that's what we should do. So if would one of you please describe what that means when we have a line item? Kristal, I think you were the one that were telling Melissa and me about what that means, because I think it was me and Melissa was saying, hey, this sounds like great news. What does this mean?
Right. You guys are texting me. You're like, what's this? I had just finished a meeting with a senator with Quinette. And your text message came through. We were done with the meeting and her and I were chatting. And literally I pick up the phone and I was like, what? I was like, yeah. Like she's looking at me like, what? And I was like, dude. Like I totally lost all composure because it was just us. And I was like, you're not going to effing believe this. This is like a major step forward. And it's the first time. And you normally don't get that commitment this early on with legislative advocacy. So I want to point that out because I've done a lot of legislative advocacy for individuals with intellectual disabilities, the mental health community, both on a state and federal level. And sometimes it's taken, on average 7 years sometimes. And right now we're in a climate where we got to bring everybody to the page in Senate. And then on top of that, we have to also be cognizant that right now, financially, the government is being very, they're trying to be very fiscally responsible. So what happened was, get this text message, and I was like, he's committing to, I'm going to break this down so it makes better sense. So a line item is kind of like a deposit request, or like from your bank, or like a loan in a sense. What he's doing is he's gonna, when the appropriation committee meets and everybody in the Senate submits their line item request, they're literally writing in for consideration for the rest of the committee funding to be appropriated for fibromyalgia research through the National Institutes of Health. So in order to get that commitment, and a senator, after 4 years of doing this, that what people don't realize, that's a huge, huge step forward. And many communities spend years. I've seen communities spend a decade or more. And what that comes down to is really having proactive voices within our community and sharing our personal experiences so that they understand not just the personal impact, but the global impact of fibromyalgia. So when they meet to review and discuss and decide which line items basically to shift money for specific things for research, Senator Durbin's committing to include fibromyalgia. And that's the first time that has ever become a line item for our community. And then it comes down to, we rally the community. And because Senator Durbin is supporting this for us, that also gives us, I don't want to use the word credibility, but other members, and let me break this down. I want to make sure I'm not being too like nerdy and heady about this, because I know all this, but when we're submitting this appropriation funding request for research to the Senate Committee of Labor, Health, Human Services, Education, and related agencies. And this committee is the committee that allocates the funding for research specific for fibromyalgia and other medical conditions. So one of the things was, we had already had meetings set up with other senators on the Senate subcommittee. We also were proactive, where with Senator Durbin in Illinois, an appropriations request had already been submitted. Brandi in South Carolina submitted one to her senator that serves on the committee. And then a shout out to BBFF team member Steve Gibson in Oregon, his senator, Senator Merkley. Also, was it Senator Merkley? That was one of the funnest meetings. That also sits on the appropriation committee as well. And then a huge shout out to the founder of ITP, Patient-Driven Research Initiatives, and the Rare Candace blog, and Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia team member Candace Lerman in Florida, who let us she let me use her to submit an appropriation request to her senator, Senator Rubio. So then we did that first. Then we have our meetings with our congressional leaders, our senators, and we had other meetings set up with the subcommittee members as well that we didn't submit proclamation requests to. So in the grand scheme of things, we were proactive and we got those requests for funding in ahead of schedule. Then we met with those offices that we submitted that request for appropriation. Then we set up meetings with other committee members in Senate, including the committee chair, Senator Baldwin of Wisconsin. And then we had Senator Britt, who sits on that committee as well, in Alabama. And I think there was a couple others, but then, so this is a great move forward, pushing forward, a great victory for us. But we don't drop the ball here. And then we're going to go into some next steps of what is to come up and how we all can do a very small piece of amplifying our voices to motivate and mobilize our senators of that committee to all agree and approve that line item of funding appropriated for fibromyalgia research through the National Institutes of Health. And with that, I think the important part here is understanding the value of creating those relationships throughout these years of advocating, especially some of the great rapport we had this year and how that is going to support us moving forward.
I just wanted to go off of that and say that we were told in other meetings, once we said that that line item request was going to be put on there by Senator Durbin's office, we were told to just make sure that we have confirmation of it at the beginning of the new year, because Congress environment is could change. And so just to get confirmation of that. And we did submit an appropriations request to Senator Graham's office, and I will be personally following up with him in person with their office this summer. I believe it was June 6th. I got one with Senator Scott's office and one with Senator Graham's office that week. So we're excited to follow up on that. And Kristal, my apologies for the dogs barking. Our weather is completely off today. It's affecting all of us. We're not in the best of moods, and little Ellie is going around bothering Bosco right now. So my apologies.
Well, and I also wanted to point out too, what we're talking about in the learning moment is bipartisan support. So here's the thing for everybody out there. A lot of people post that we need research, right? We need more treatments for fibromyalgia. It's super important. This is the big, large funding agency. So that's why we're talking and asking for additional funding for NIH. So we're going to move into next steps of shortly, but just needing everybody's support here. This is how it goes. So they need to hear from you. They need to hear from all of us. And this is why we stepped up and be like, look, we are not getting enough funding for fibromyalgia to match the prevalence. There's been so much repeated funding. So we had to take a really active approach. And just for people out there is this is a bipartisan support. So we are talking to everybody, because everybody, it gets all ages, all genders, all races are affected by fibromyalgia. So it matters to everybody. And this is why it's important that we're all working together. And you're hearing congressional names, you're hearing senators' names all across the board. And this is what we're doing, and we're stepping up together. But we are going to need everybody's help. So this is where we begin the rally. And Kristal, I know you had prepared stuff for people to take initiative with when it comes to building some of these relationships.
Yes. And real quick, I just want to kind of reframe this, because you hear the word bipartisan, and basically that just means that everybody on both sides is supporting that initiative. But I want to reframe this, because there's a difference between understanding politics and being political. So we understand politics and the strategy, and we're approaching this not as a political need, but as a humanistic need. And there's awareness, advocacy, and activism. And really at this level, we're doing activism, we're activists, but this is a human issue. So I say we're humanists. And that's That's the key here. We've been building relationships. We had some really great meetings. We had some positive support from different senators who gave us a helping hand when meeting with other senators. And then after the end of the day, sending follow-up thank you emails to everybody we met with. And then from there, I've been contacting the rest of the Senate committee members to put on their radar that they may be receiving phone calls from their constituents and people in the US asking for support on this initiative and supporting Senator Durbin's line item request when it's presented. And this helps because they are hearing more voices and it's building more relationships. It shows our consistency. It shows that we are not just advocating, but we're actively wanting to partner with our legislators on this. And then what will happen is once we get to the next step and I finish contacting the rest of the committee members, Senate committee members, is that we will come out with some informational posts, both video and written, on how you can help us get the ball across the finish line here, and like calling and emailing the senators, your senators, the Senate committee members, and we'll have even a script so that it makes it easy if you've never done this. But we want to empower you and we want you to be part of this process and all these small victories that is eventually going to lead to a big victory, because there's no I in teamwork, there's only we. And everybody's voice and experience is what is detrimental to being victorious, because your life book can change the landscape for everyone living with fibromyalgia.
Yeah, before we head into questions, Melissa, I just wanted to bring up, because we got some good questions in there. Carrie's joining us. Hi, Carrie. I did want to say that when we go into these meetings, it's not like we're going in there, whether you're a team leader or not, we're not going in there and we're just saying, hey, this is why we need to do this, and this is what we've done, and we just walk away. No, what we do is we go in there and we like, this is what the problem is, this is a solution that could help us, and this is the reason why, because this is how it affects our lives daily. But then at the end, we also say, could you tell us what we should be doing? What are some other processes? And what I learned from one of our meetings, I believe Daniel Goodrich was in there with me. We said, hey, like, what are some other things we could do to help with increase with funding and research? And he was like, oh, well, let me tell you. And he started telling me all these things. And I was like, okay, great. So then that way I could go back to the team and I'm like, hey, do we know that there's these other avenues to try to get funding? And so what we have to remember is when we go into these meetings is that they want to help us. They want to listen to us because we're in their states. They want to keep their residents happy. And so that's when, we go into these meetings with just an open mind and want them to do the same thing. Have an open mind, listen to what we have to say. We do the same thing. And I saw some good questions on there about proclamations. Kristal, that would be great for you.
Well, and Brandi, I do want to add too that there was an interesting meeting with the senator, with the staffer, and he was so befuddled because I was saying we have so much misinformation, and he pulled up the CDC's website and he pulled up the NIH's website side by side. And then I joked with him. I was like, wait till you can see like ACR and Mayo Clinic's like website together. And he was like, how are we so behind? And so, I mean, these are the conversations we're having. They're getting it. So everybody out there, they're understanding, they're relating, it's making sense as we're approaching this stuff. So what Brandi said too is we're presenting, we have an issue to present, walking them through, giving them the solution, having people share their experience, their quality of life living with fibromyalgia, why we need this so desperately, and especially as everyone asks and talks about medical providers being properly educated. So it's like all encompassing when it comes to that. And before we get to Q&A, really quick, just call to action. So Kristal mentioned it. Stay tuned and posted for scripts, blogging, shares. It's going to come from all of our social media channels. We'll be sure to post that and tag all the pages too. So we need another big push for these next couple of weeks, especially because we will be in DC taking more meetings as well. talking about fibromyalgia along with other chronic illness issues, but we could use everybody's support. No matter what state, city you live in, we'll give you scripts to send emails, to call, to tweet, post on social media. And we can even highlight some of the people that were like concentrated. But if you're out there, you want to get involved, this is a great way to start. And it's a huge call to action to everybody. And we'll make sure to have all that ready for you to go shortly. I didn't see, I mean, I'm seeing some rallies, and did I miss any other questions?
Yeah. So Danielle Goodrich, she's at work. So she popped in for a few minutes and she asked if proclamations are something we have to do each year, or once they're declared, that's it. So I know, Kristal, that's your area of expertise.
Well, actually, I learned something cool from Frank, Kristal. So I have a whole, Frank Rivera, shout out to him. He's going to set up a meeting with me and teach this. There's also Dorothea Lance. They have some information on that could change the game for real.
Oh, wow.
So state proclamations from governors, yeah, they're good for that year. There's also, like, I've received a commendation from like the State House of Representatives of Ohio. And then looking, so yeah, think of those as kind of like a renewal every year. And I know myself, I've been able to get it consistently more than once. And there's also a process and understanding, especially when you're doing, when you're mobilizing a team to do this, is that they all live in different states or cities or counties. And the submission process is a little bit different as far as the deadline to submit. Now, there are some states out, remember, it was like Montana or Wyoming or something, and they were like 120-day notice for proclamation requests. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what y'all got up in there? You got more cattle than people. Like, what's going on? Are the cows, requesting proclamation requests for, I don't know, National Farmers Day? But so there's like some states that are very rigid. And I have a whole PDF of when that timeline is to get it in. But also some states will outline, like, the governor's office want you to write out the whereas. And then there's sometimes some confusion because you submit that information as they request it, but every governor on their website will say they have the right to add. A lot of governors will not do a proclamation for Awareness Month, nor will they identify a proclamation for an individual, business, or organization, nor issue one if it's for an event or an awareness cause where there's money involved. So even if it's you're raising funds for a nonprofit fibro-specific organization, if you request that proclamation, they're going to deny it right there. If it's an event that is, you're going to make some revenue and they know that, they're not going to issue a proclamation. So there's very specific guidelines. Each state is different. Some states are like, give us 4-week notice. Some are like 120 days. And so it's
it's exciting though, because I mean, I just remembered too, I've been fortunate enough to be involved with Patients Rising now, and I've joined a patient senate. So this is like why we bring this all to the community and why cross collaboration with chronic illnesses are going to be so valuable. And I'm going to call them by their senator names. So this is legit like a patient senate. So they call roll call. It's like Senator Talwar. So Senator Rivera, Senator Lance, Senator Montgomery, like they were all talking about these proclamations and creating press releases around it. So we're definitely going to invite them on as guests to share their experiences. They do manage other chronic illness conditions, but I think it's great that we learn from each other. And I know, Kristal, you've been collaborating with other chronic illness conditions too. We've reached out to a lot of lupus. We do migraine, like collaboration. So remember, that's huge. And there's other advocacy work to be done. So if you are interested, you can get involved with fibromyalgia advocacy work, but there's also other level chronic illness, federal and state level advocacy work. And we're going to be connected with Patients Rising now that's opened up a patient senate. So we have real patient senators, and then we're inviting people to join the committees. So there's a lot of work that if you're interested in this space, you can really dive into much more.
Well, Amber had asked, how can she get involved? So anybody can get involved with what we're doing. And I know that what we're saying is, it sounds like it's a lot and it sounds really overwhelming. And it's, like how I was feeling at first is like, I can't do this. I don't know enough. I'm not active enough, but that's just not true. You can get involved. We have it where if you want to be just a little bit involved, or if you want to be heavily involved, we can be able to do that. When Melissa and I first started on this whole advocacy venture that we're on, we were just like overwhelmed with all the information. And so we were just trying to get the ball rolling, and we've been going. And every time we have advocacy, we learn something. And when I say we, I mean everyone that's involved. We all learn something and we all share. Like, what you don't see is when after those meetings are over, we're debriefing, we're getting in there and we're really talking, what do we learn? What are we going to do next? How can we do it better? And something that Melissa and I have always talked about is being able to streamline it and organize it better. So that way, if you want to be involved, it's not overwhelming. So that's what we're going to focus on. Melissa and I are meeting up in DC this summer, and we're really going to try to streamline this and organize it. So that way, if you've never done this before, you haven't even shared your story, or you're very heavily involved with us for the last few years, there's going to be something for you. So that way,
the platform is being built.
Yes.
I know we were going to use another platform, but that didn't work out so much, as we learned in November. But the platform is being built as we speak for multiple reasons. As we make a switch, there might be some other switches and updates for the organization too, with URLs and things like that coming up. So the platform will have, but in the meantime, you'll see on social media the call to actions too. But it'll all be there with these resources. You can dive in. We'll have a community built out, so we can all nerd out. And before, I know we have some special closing things that we need to get to too. But I do want to give a shout out to Carrie for all of her international advocacy. She did a great presentation at the November conference on international advocacy. She continues to advocate for chronic illness conditions in Taiwan. And this is huge because she's really leading the charge out there and formulating new plans, especially for fibromyalgia. So I did want to give her a special shout out from my several worlds. Okay, we have special closing out with all of this. So Kristal, are you going to share some special guests with us? And then also I do want to talk a little bit more about what this weekend represents.
Sure, because these dogs they like to look at themselves. So anyways, for those who have seen my dogs and my mom's dogs and even some of my friends' dogs are pretty active in promoting awareness and even putting out informational videos from a dog's perspective on social media and YouTube and whatnot. So a lot of people are aware of the Skipper Key crew for Team Fibro. And so I thought I'd introduce you to some of them, along with, we'll tie in Sydney, the superhero, for this weekend. But so this is who started the Skipper Key crew right here. Claire Bear, Miss Claire. She's the mama. So
Claire Bear and Care Bear and Carrie Bear. Yeah, so we have Carrie here, Team Fibro. And then
so we have Claire, and she is, when you see all the videos of all the little black dogs, the Skipper Keys, the puppies, she was the start of it all. And so she's a Skipper Key, and you've seen some videos of them wearing purple, pause for fibro, pop and put on purple. So this is Claire. She's numero uno. She's a good girl. She's very chill for a Skipper Key. And then we have Clyde. Clyde is Claire Bear's son. This is Cody's brother. Hi. See, we've done videos.
So cute.
Yeah, we've done videos. You like wearing purple for me. Then we have a lot of people recognize this brick house of a dog. Come here, Cody. Cody is Cody the Skipper Key, Mr. Mischievous. And he's really, really big for Skipper Key. He is not fat, he's big boned. Right? And he also does informational awareness videos for those living with fibromyalgia. And he just snuck on today and posted one about self-care and wellness. But so this is Cody, the Skipper Key. And then we can tie it up with this information about this weekend. And hopefully my other guy will come, Sydney.
Kristal's like the Mary Poppins over there. She's just like grabbing down. There's another dog.
I can't even get one. Toby will not. He just looked at me. Is like, are you kidding me? No way. So I have an attitude of a dog over here. I guess just like, no. I mean, you should see it. So it's cool that, they love the camera, the pose, they eat it up.
They do. Sydney, my other guy, he's shy-ish. Sydney, you want Trito? It's supposed to be your turn. Okay. He's like, nope. But my other guy, he has done some videos, and he is a really huge supporter of our first responders, military, and veterans. Has gone to events for different just kind of Memorial Days and whatnot, what have you. And he doesn't want to jump up and be on camera, which he typically doesn't. But for today, this weekend is Memorial Day weekend. Monday is Memorial Day, and Memorial Day is meant to recognize those who fell and gave their life in the line of duty. I personally know 3 people who died in the line of duty serving in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And so like Sydney today is wearing a camouflage bandana just to support those that are no longer with us, who gave the ultimate sacrifice. So Monday, I know like there's all these sales and barbecues because listen, some, grilled hamburgers and steak is pretty delicious, but we need to make sure we are taking a moment to recognize the sacrifices made by those military members who lost their life in the line of duty, and understand that this is their weekend, this is their day, and there are ways to show your support. Like with my dogs, Sydney, he's got his camouflage army camo, bandana on. There are parades, there are moments of silence. I know that historically I'll go and place flags with BBFF team members at grave sites and go fix the grave markers that identify the veterans buried in a cemetery. So there's a lot of simple things you can do to recognize the fallen, and also remember that this is their day, their Memorial Day, their remembrance.
Well, thank you so much. And I know we'll close out with that message too. So thank you, Kristal, Brandi, for joining us this morning. We'll have more information on advocacy to all of our fibromyalgia friends out there listening. Thank you for listening in and tuning in and sharing. Get involved. There's so many ways to be involved, and sharing this content is one of the #1 ways. So please follow our pages. We'll list them in the description shortly and tag everybody out there. And we will see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.